Good evening. I discovered Thoreau when I was a kid. And I say I discovered him because this was not a school assignment. I found him for myself. And this was a time when I read for how to do anything. And to this day, the genre of how-to books is one of my favorites. And from Walden, I learned that it's okay to live on as little money as possible. I learned that it was okay to dress in homemade clothes. And I learned that it's good to raise our own food in our backyard. And my earliest, happiest memory was looking at the snow peas grow, and especially the flowers of all kinds of purples and violets. And so that's Thoreau with the beans, the same thing. And when I got older, I wanted to build my own little house. And Thoreau called it a box, so I wanted a box. And the first box was a shed in our backyard. And we kids went in there, and I put in curtains and furniture, took out all the junk, and so that became my box. And then I was thinking, what did Thoreau do in his box? I don't think that was in Walden, and so, but then it must be that he was writing in there, because that's what I wanted to do when I got into my box. And so the next box I made was I went into the house and I emptied the pantry. We had a walk-in pantry, and so I got a typewriter, and I got a table, chair, and there I started writing novels and stories. And so what I have now is, instead of a garage, we built I didn't know what to call it. Mostly I was calling it an office, and then my friends, my artist friends, were calling theirs a studio. So I tried to call mine a studio, but that didn't work, and a box doesn't work. And so since I live in California, casita. So I have a casita, and it is just the same size as Thoreau's box. And so the reading How to Live, that I tried to live like Thoreau, but I loved Walden, and so okay, I'm gonna write like that. That kind of it's prose, but to me, it's poetry. Okay, then when I was older and read Walden again, which I have read it again and again at different times of my life, and the next thing I learned as an older person, that I must, when I find work, it has to be meaningful work. I cannot do any job that has a wrong, unethical product. And so the job that I found that is meaningful is teaching school and to be a teacher. And so most of my working life has been teaching high school. And the Thoreau said that he loved a broad margin to his life. And I could think of that to mean many things, that he wanted to be far away from other people. He wanted to find solitude. He wanted to be in the woods and not the city. But, you know, he never could get away. He could not get away from human problems. Even in the woods, he could hear military martial music coming from Concord. And he knew what he said was, my fellow citizens are rallying for war against Little Mexico. And that's why he refused to pay his taxes. That tax was for war against Mexico. And we know now that that war with Mexico reverberates to this day, and we are living the consequences today. And now I understand when he says he wants a broad margin to his life. Margin, that's another word for border. Thoreau, when he went to jail for not paying his taxes, he gave me strength when I myself went to jail to protest shock and awe against Iraq. I was older when I read Emerson, and I had read the small essays. I read the Oversoul. I read Self-Reliance, and I was so impressed by them, those two essays, and also by Walden, that when I registered for school at Berkeley, in those days, you had to write down what your religion was. So I looked at the form, tried to fill it out, and religion, and so I wrote transcendentalist. So I only read the selected Emerson only a few years ago, and it was not the Library of America's volume. It was the Modern Library edition. And I read that because Toni Morrison sent it to me. And she sent it after the big fire in California, the big one in Oakland and Berkeley. And it burned my neighborhood, the forest, our house. It burned the writing I was doing. And then Toni, it burned my library. I think we had like 5,000 books or so. And Toni Morrison sent me the collected Emerson. And so I was reading about he wrote about actual communion with God in oneself. He wrote about having direct experience, that's his word, experience of the spiritual and the mystical. He wrote about the universal mind. And as I was reading, I thought, wait a minute, this is the Dalai Lama. He sounds just like the Dalai Lama. The words, the translation from the Tibetan. And I thought, wow. I had earlier in learning about the transcendentalists, there was such an emphasis on self-reliance, and there's this thought about self-reliance. That's why we Americans are such individualists. But I don't think that was what Thoreau and Emerson, I don't think that's what he was talking about. I don't think he was talking about that we should be individuals. I think he was saying that we don't need an intermediary between us and God. We can have a direct experience with the universal mind on our own. That's just like the Dalai Lama, that we can individually reach Satori. Somebody else can't give it to us. And also another way he was like the Dalai Lama, Emerson talked a lot about form and how form can appear and disappear. This is like the Heart Sutra, where there is no form, there is emptiness. And Emerson said that there is a God that's within us. He called it one man with a capital O and a capital M. And he says that we are all connected to all. We are all connected to all. We are one. There isn't just me, there's all. And this is exactly what the Dalai Lama says. We are one. And so Thoreau taught me to be and to live in the real, actual, solid, physical, natural world. He also gave me the title for my long poem, I Love a Broad Margin to My Life. But Emerson taught me and affirmed my life in the mystical, the supernatural, the spiritual world, the soul world. He used that word soul again and again, sometimes with a capital S and sometimes with a small s. And so Emerson taught me soul, and that I have one and we have one, and we are the universal soul. And here is what Thoreau says on the library walk in concrete and brass. Books are the treasured wealth of the world and the fit inheritance of generations and nations. Thank you.